Pam, and I would like to welcome you to the Live Authentically show. My team and I help other people step into their authentic realities via a number of different modalities. This show is obviously one of them. I am also a spiritual life coach, and I work with individuals and groups to help them step into their individual, respective, authentic realities. I also launched my first book. It's called SOAR, SOAR, and it's on Amazon. It's available in audiobook, paperback, and Kindle. And I show how I partnered with the universe to overcome adversity and step into my authentic reality. So I'd love to have you check it out. I also have a Facebook group, a private Facebook group, and we can be found at liveauthentically.today/FB. I am super pumped because today I have with me Farooq Shah. Hey, Farooq.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great. Yeah,
Good
thank
to
you for
hear.
asking.
I'm so happy to have you here. Farooq has an amazing, amazing story to share with all of you. It's a story about overcoming adversity and a story of super powerful resilience. So I can't wait for him to share his story with all of you. But before we dive into that, I would like to start my show off with the same question that I ask all of my guests. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. The question is, what does it mean to you to live authentically every day?
For me, because I am a resiliency guy, I believe that living authentically is doing and being uh, yourself and whatever strengthens you at your soul. Doing and living your life to whatever strengthens your being on an everyday basis.
I love that. I love that. And you have certainly done that many times over in your life. Let's rewind to whatever point in time you can think of where you didn't feel like you were living authentically. Is there a time when you can tell us about when you didn't feel like what you were doing and saying and believing and feeling was in alignment?
Yeah, I think I spent most of my childhood and in my 20s living unauthentically or inauthentically. I mean, I spent it with this idea that I was diagnosed with systemic juvenile rheumatoid arthritis at 2. I started showing symptoms at 1, and it changed. Obviously, it changed my body. So, for those that aren't familiar with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, they might be familiar with adults that have rheumatoid arthritis. It's the same except it affects children. And so with that said, like I would experience pain, obviously, fevers, stiffness. And so I grew up in a Middle Eastern household where it was expected for the male to be a strong head of the household type of person, especially the first son. And so, with that said, I think my parents really didn't know how to handle everything that was going on medically with me at that time and throughout my childhood. And so, basically, I had this idea that I couldn't love or accept my body the way it was, and that carried on into the 20s with me. And so it was this idea that I'm broken and that I'm limited with what I have, and I'm no good, and so with that, uh I I dealt with that for most of my 20s as well as a young adult, just trying to figure it out until I actually broke my neck in 2011 from C2 to C7. You have 7 spinal vertebrae in your neck, and I broke C2 to C7. I fell, and my neck snapped back, and it left me as a quadriplegic. And so I went from thinking I'm limited in my body and what I can do mobility wise
Mm.
to being severely even more limited, and not understanding really what to do with that, and being in a state of like, my belief system has to change in order for me to survive this. And
Yeah.
so
Um,
yeah.
let's talk about that moment at which you realized that your belief system needs to change. Tell me a little bit about what it was prior to that moment, and then we can go into how it transformed as a result of that moment. But I think this is really, really important because it really highlights the power of our thoughts, right? And the power of the story that we tell ourselves. So, what was your belief system prior to that moment?
That I was not capable of being loved, that I had a broken body, that I was useless, worthless, and that it was, you know, it just was what it was, and that I had to come to terms with that and accept what that was. And then after I broke my neck, and I realized how severely limited in mobility I became after that.
Mhm.
Uh, it made me almost uh, regretful that I hadn't given gratitude and appreciated the mobility that I had, you know.
Mm.
And with arthritis, because it is a progressive disease, like you experienced, like I experienced, like throughout elementary school, throughout my childhood, like lessening of abilities, like lessening of mobility. And no matter how like active I was with physical therapy, there's always going to be a somewhat of a decline, even though I'm currently in remission. Like, I remember those years vividly, that like I would be able to tie my shoes one day and no longer be able to tie my shoes, a couple weeks after that, or a month after that, or a year after that, and so uh, those like lessening of that mobility came with like almost like a grieving process, where it was, okay, I don't have that ability anymore, but I can do this, and I was able to adapt to that,
Yeah.
and so I didn't really know that tool was useful. And I really feel that like my childhood and like uh, my 20s really helped me prepare for having my neck broke. Yeah, if that makes any sense, like it really helped lay the groundwork for what I was about to encounter.
Yeah.
And then and I had been dabbling in meditation, and I had been dabbling in spirituality, and just trying to understand my place in the world, for a long time, and so and then I broke my neck, and I realized that there were a lot of people telling me, Farooq, you won't feel anything from the waist down again. You won't be able to walk again. There was a lot of limiting beliefs, and I realized that those limiting beliefs at times felt comforting to me, and they felt like the natural progression of my life, and it bothered me, and so I broke my neck around noon, and then I was at the hospital, and then I got transferred to Rush, which is a medical center here,
Mhm.
Rush ICU, and the doctor came in at around 1 or 2 in the morning, and he said, you have a severe neck injury, and that we don't know if you'll be able to walk again. We don't know if you'll ever feel anything from the waist down again. And that's your reality. That's what you have to accept. And so it left me like thinking the rest of the night, uh, is that the reality that I have to accept? And I really began to question it, and I transitioned from this why me, why do I have this illness, into this from this victimhood to questioning, okay, well, what if that isn't my reality? What if uh, I can forge a new reality? What if I can forge a new purpose and a new belief system? And I started for the first time asking how, and that's where everything kind of transitioned, was with that thought of, what if what they're telling me isn't the way it has to be?
I love that. And I think this is super powerful. And I'd like to pause here for a moment and dive super deep and ask you where you think that deep seated knowingness and wisdom that you had the power to rescript your belief system and therefore completely change the trajectory of your life came from.
I believe that it came from within. I've always been a very introspective person, and I've always looked for within for answers. So I believe it came from within. I'm sure the universe helped me along the way, but I just think it came from this like knowingness that I was going to be okay, and it came from this uh, deep rooted place that uh, I can get through this. I just kept on saying to myself, no one is going to beat me at this game of recovery and life, including me. And I wasn't about to beat myself up. I think I had done that long enough where I was like, okay, there has to be another way.
This is super powerful, and I like to highlight this as well. That was a choice, right? In
Yeah,
that moment,
absolutely,
you
absolutely.
had a
That
choice. You were at that fork in the road, and you could have chosen to take the victim path, or you could have chosen to take the hero path. And you made a conscious decision to take the hero path, even though that involved overcoming insurmountable odds, even though that meant completely overturning what your doctor had said your future looked like, right? I mean, that is super powerful that you harnessed your innate power and innate wisdom that, you know what? I don't need to accept this as my reality. I can dig super deep and anchor on my God given, universe inspired strength and harness my true power. And I can create my reality to look any way I wanted to. And I think that is amazing. I think it's super powerful. And it's something I want us all to think about for a minute and reflect on, that we have the power to change our lives, right? That comes from, like you said, that comes from within. And there are so many tools available to us. There are other people, but it really needs to come from within. So let's dive in and talk about your belief system. So we talked about, you told me what it looked like before. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy of being loved. My body has limitations. This is just the way it is. And then you completely and radically transformed it into something that is absolutely amazing. So tell me about, what did your belief system become in that moment?
Well, I I realized that choice became up to me. Like, and that's what propelled me and gave me power. Like, I realized I could make that choice. Like, it didn't have to do with what my parents thought of me, or what my dad thought of me. It didn't have anything to do with that. It became about me choosing a belief system that was best for me. And so uh, I would reject anything that didn't align with that belief system. So I took feelings completely out of it, and I became almost robotic, in a sense that I had a goal, and there wasn't anything that was going to stop me from that goal, which was to walk again. And so I decided that they would send a gentleman in every day to fit me for a wheelchair, and I would tell him like, no, you have to leave, and so like I would tell him like every day you have to leave, and then eventually, a couple of weeks after this, they sent in a psychologist like, Farooq, we appreciate your determination, but you have to also be willing to accept your reality. And so uh it I told them to leave too,
I was
but
gonna say, did you tell them you have to be willing to accept my reality?
exactly. And I think it's so easy because there's other people obviously in there with neck injuries or brain injuries or strokes. And it's so easy to believe what people tell you. And your diagnosis, your prognosis. I mean, it's so easy to be like, okay, this is the way it is. I mean, there was a gentleman that fell off a roof that was in the bed next to me, and he would tell me, "Fruit, why do you work so hard? There's no reason to work so hard. You're still going to be in the same place that you are, And to me, I felt I had a goal, and as long as I didn't believe that it was impossible, I believed that I could achieve it. I had to grind it into my spirit that this was possible, and the first month, maybe even longer than that, when I couldn't feel anything. I thought to myself like, okay, there was doubt there. I mean, I think doubt will always be there, but it'll be in the background. Like for me, it was in the background, and I never let it be the loudest voice in the room.
Mhm.
And I always went back to my grounding principle of I'm going to walk again. And I always went back to my principle of I'm not going to let anyone beat me, including me, And so I believed it was possible, and and I believed that I could walk again or at least move again. And so about 2 months into it, I started feeling my toes again, and like my big toe, and
What was
uh,
that like? What was that moment like for you?
uh, it was groundbreaking because I realized uh, that once I started feeling my big toe, it was game over. Like I knew that I was getting somewhere, and you go through a lot of experiences when you have a severe neck injury, such as mine. But I had spinal cord bruising as well, and so I came very close to actually severing my spinal cord, but I did not. So yeah, but I say that all to say, like, you go through a lot, and you go through something called tone, where your limbs they shake because of your nervous system, and so yeah, I started feeling my toes again, and I started saying, wait, I'm onto something here. I think I can actually weight bear. I think I can actually do this, And so it was just a confirming thought. It was something where I said, uh, I I planted the seed. I worked every day, and I'm finally getting somewhere, and it gave me the propulsion that I needed to go further, and it just accelerated my desire to work even harder uh, to get back to where I was.
That is so amazing. So what happened after that point then? You started to have feeling in your feet, and
Then
then tell me about your recovery after that point.
I was transferred to the Bowman Institute. It's a rehab facility next to Rush, and from there it was nonstop working on standing, working on uh, moving, parallel bars.
Mhm.
There's a lot of pain. Like, I'm very good at managing pain and dealing with pain. So there was a lot of pain, uh, and that's why I say I think I'm like the poster child for, like, if anyone was going to break a neck, it would be me, because I I would be able to recover from it. And so, yeah, I spent months in rehab, relearning everything, and I relearned how to walk, to use the stairs, to use my arms. Yeah, I relearned everything. I relearned how to drive, and then, a few months after that, I was on a walker.
Mhm.
I was feeling a lot more. Within, I would say, 3 or 4 months, I started feeling like my knees. I started feeling my shins. I started feeling yeah, my legs again. I mean, it's not like normal feeling, that like you would have, but it was like tingling feeling, which is like, when you lose complete feeling, uh it's the most scariest experience in the world, because it's just, the reason it's so terrifying is because it's like silence. It's like, uh you have your legs, but you're completely disconnected from them. It's a very surreal experience. And then when the tingling starts to happen, then you're like, okay, I'm getting somewhere. And so, yeah, I spent months and months in rehab, but I did walk out of there. I walked out of there with a walker, but I did walk out of there.
Yeah, that is so amazing. Congratulations to you on that is so incredible on so many levels. Did you ever have the chance to talk to any of the doctors or the professionals who initially told you that you would likely not walk again? Were you ever able to talk to them and
Yeah, I still talk to my neurosurgeon, and
mm,
he says, he always tells me that, your case isn't uh, the normal case.
yeah,
Most people with your injury don't walk again.
I was
And they wrote me a very nice letter, asking me to come and speak at Rush, about my experience and about how I was able to do what I do, and or how I did what I did. Um, and I spoke to the rehab gentleman as well, and he thinks that it has a lot to do with, like, my persistence, as well as with my pain threshold. I can deal with a lot of pain, and so, uh, you know what? I think it has to do with a lot of the internal work, as well as the external work, but also a commitment, an unwavering commitment, to know that nothing is a reality until it becomes one. Like, nothing. I can't say what's going to happen 10 days from now. And so, to like. Uh, uh, it was this unwavering commitment in myself, and I chose myself, and to love myself for the first time in that process. And so, yeah, I think a little bit of luck played into it too. But yeah, it was a hard road. And then, even after I had gotten done with rehab, and just like being at home by myself, I almost went through. Well, I did go through, like, post traumatic stress. I went through uh, uh, this idea that, like, holy shit, I just went through this, and it was like processing that experience. I hadn't allowed myself to really process that experience. And once I processed that experience, I said, this is what resiliency is all about. These lessons, everything that I've learned, I have to be able to integrate it into my life and use it to strengthen me. the thoughts that we have, whether they be on a daily basis or whether they just be random thoughts that we have throughout the day, we have so many of them that are negative. And I think a lot of that has to do with just being able to reframe those thoughts. And so that's what I made my mission even after I got out of the hospital. Was after I would have a negative thought, I would try to reframe it to see the positive out of it, and I would try to interpret it a different way.
I love that you just brought that up. Actually, that was one of the notes that I wrote earlier that I wanted to come back to. So this would be the perfect point to come back to it. I wrote reframing when you were talking earlier in the podcast about, how you kind of had to not how you had to part from focusing on what you couldn't do to what you could do, right? Celebrating what you could do. I mean, that's reframing. And I think I'd love to hear you talk about that for a little bit because I think this is so important to highlight because we can do this. We have many opportunities to reframe experiences throughout the day. And it is that reframing process that allows us to change the direction of our life, right? To rewrite, to rescript our belief system, and therefore recreate our reality. So,
Ab-
can you give us a few
Absolutely.
examples? I think it would be helpful if we could talk through some examples of reframing. And you can talk about them in general or talk about them specific to your situation. But what were some thoughts that you used to have? And then how did you reframe them to be thoughts that served you better?
Absolutely. I think reframing has to do with it, as well as gratitude. I used to think that I had limited mobility, that I had a useless body, that it was just a empty vessel that, wouldn't even be able to get me from point A to point B. And then after my injury, after I went through everything, I realized I'm grateful for the body that I have. That there are individuals that have it far worse than I do, and I started extending gratitude to even the simplest of things, and from washing dishes to putting my shirt on in the morning. I learned that by reframing my experience as well as extending gratitude to simple things, it changed my outlook. Like I would get frustrated after I learned how to drive. Like the brake and the gas never really felt the same. Like it has to do with like the weight that you exert onto the gas pedal versus the brake, and it never really felt the same. And I would never get out of the car the same. And I was working with a physical therapist, and I was like, I was defeated by it. I was like, this just doesn't feel the same as when I used to drive, And then she's like, Farouk, that's because it isn't the same, you're driving and you had a major neck injury, and it things are going to change. And she told me, but you're making progress. It's just going to be different, And so I think that that's an important part to remember in resiliency too, is this idea that it's not really about how many times you fail. It's your desire to fail and fail and fail, but not give up, and to keep persisting through it. And so that's an important part for me too. And so, yeah, I,
And
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I felt that, uh, I spent months with reframing and with extending gratitude and just being grateful to even be alive. So yeah,
I
absolutely.
And I know you mentioned earlier, it's you mentioned the word doubt, and it's normal when you're faced with something like this to have thoughts of doubt creeping in, either that self-doubt or doubt coming from external places. I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about how you work through those moments. How is it that you are able to transmute those thoughts of doubt into fuel for your mission?
I I would allow doubt to take over, and I would allow it to overwhelm me. And I realized after my neck injury that doubt was stopping me from reaching my potential and from reaching my goal.
Mhm.
And so it I had to silence it. I think that there will always be a voice within me that says, uh, you don't got this. You're never going to get there, and just give up now, and hide under the blanket. And that voice uh, is one that I didn't silence because it'll always be with me, but I just turned the volume down on. And
Yeah.
I realized and accepted that doubt is natural, and it's just a part of our experience. It's a part of my journey. A doubt now I use to fuel me rather than stagnate me. I use doubt to say, okay, you believe that? Watch this, and so I use it to fuel my journey.
Yeah.
Uh, well, after a month of coming back from the hospital and going through that experience, I started really asking myself, what is the quality of my life?
Mhm.
What is limiting me from living my best life? And I made a decision to get my knees and my hips replaced. And so the year after that, in 2012, I started on a journey where 5 weeks apart, 4 weeks apart for the first three, and then five for the last one. I got my right hip replaced, and then I got my left hip replaced, and then I got my right knee done, and then my left knee done. And that was in a very aggressive timeline
Mhm.
that I don't recommend to anyone with some sort of sanity. But it was a time that I felt the most debilitated and the most doubtful. Like, will I ever be able to put myself back together again?
Mhm.
And I went back to my grounding thought of, if I can get through this and I can use it, I can get through that. And so that's what I did. And I didn't let uh, doubt take over the scene, and I didn't let doubt be the loudest voice in the room.
I love that. And I think it's so important to first develop a sense of self-awareness, right? When those thoughts of doubt come creeping in, to understand that they're normal, right? They're normal. It's accept them. They're part and parcel of the human condition. I mean,
Absolutely.
wouldn't be, it's part of our humanity when doubt creeps in and when
Yeah.
fear creeps in. But the real power comes in when we can transmute the doubt and the fear and allow it to empower us. Like you said, when you had those thoughts of doubt creeping in, okay, well, watch this. So we have a choice. We can either allow those thoughts to disable us, to cripple us, to stifle us, or we can use those thoughts to allow them to empower us and to fuel us. And again, it's a moment to moment choice. I mean, it's about becoming aware of our thoughts and asking ourselves, how does this serve me? Right? Does this thought move me forward? If the answer is yes, proceed. If the answer is no, then we need to figure out how to reframe it and how to transmute it and turn it into a soul-based initiative, a soul-based endeavor. And your whole journey is from the soul, right? I mean, that's where your power comes from. That moment where you were told you're not going to walk again. You said, you know what? I am. I don't believe it. I'm choosing to not intricate this into my belief system. I don't want to harbor that belief. I want to believe that I'm going to walk again and that I'm going to get through this. So that's all soul based. And I love how throughout your journey, I mean, that's what I've heard. That's, the reframing, the transmuting the doubt. And it's just amazing what you've been able to do. Congratulations to you. It's just
Thank you.
incredible. Your recovery on just so many levels: physical, mental, spiritual, emotional. I know that this was a huge catalyst for your awakening. And I'm wondering, do you believe that the universe chose you for this experience to bring out your greatness and to help inspire others and give others hope?
Uh, if you had asked me while it was going on, I might have given you a different answer, but now it's been many years. And I think about that question often, and I believe the universe did choose me. I believe that the universe knew that this was something that I had to go through, and that this was something that was going to strengthen me and bring me to my ultimate potential. And so, uh, I had all the tools that I needed to get through it. I just didn't realize it at the time. And then the universe was like, ta-da, I'll show you, And so, and then I was able to use those tools of adaptability, of reframing, of believing in myself, and restructuring my mindset.
Mhm.
And so it came at a time in my life where I was able to welcome it, and instead of hate it and hate myself and reject it and completely be broken by it. It was a time that I was able to say, wait, I welcome you and I welcome this experience to my door, and how can it best serve me?
I love that. And do you think that the ability to bounce back the way that you did, the ability to have the resilience and overcome such extreme adversity, do you think that's something that's available to just a handful of people, selected, just select individuals in the universe? Or do you think that this is something that everyone can do in their life?
That's a great question. I actually think everyone has the ability to be resilient. Everyone has a resiliency muscle. It's just practicing it. Like I think a lot of times people have this idea that once they get through something, that they'll be okay. That there'll be a moment where there'll be a plateau and they'll become at rest. But resiliency really is, to me, not so much as like bouncing back and then being okay for a while and then bouncing back again. It's about using the difficult moments in our lives, using the adversity that we have within our lives, and learning how to incorporate it within our lives so that instead of when we come to a point where we have to use our resiliency muscle, where we have to use the skill of resiliency, well, we're ready. We're ready to move through that experience with gratitude, with this awakening that this experience will make me better. And there's experiences that are, n- sometimes we just don't see it. We don't see how this experience will make our path better, or our being better.
Right.
And some experiences are very, very hard, and such as death of a loved one. You know, uh, People oftentimes will say to me, Farouk, how can I be resilient when I've lost, so and so?
Yeah.
And the idea isn't to force resiliency. We as humans have emotions, and so it's to grieve. It's to be your authentic self, but it's also to understand. Okay, uh, if I've lost my mom, how would she want me to live? How would she want me to be? How can I interpret my feelings and thoughts and emotions towards my mom and incorporate them into my life? And that's what resiliency actually is. It's the idea of using whatever the universe gives you to your best ability.
Right. So beautifully said. And I think that's so important to highlight as well. It's often hard to make sense of life, right? When it's actually happening, particularly when we're going through challenging experiences. And that's when we're really called to step outside of ourselves, right? To believe in something more powerful than we are, whether it's God, whether it's the universe, and trust the process, right? Just trust the process. We're just all we need to do is show up every day as our authentic selves, trying to be the best version of ourselves. And we need to trust that the universe is always going to give us what's in our highest good. And we really do. It really calls us to understand that life is happening for us, not to us. That's
Absolutely. Yeah,
precisely.
yeah, absolutely. No, in regards to that trust piece, I think that that's what a lot of people struggle with is understanding that uh, you have to trust. You have to, like with me, I had to believe that it was going to get better, and there's always that hope. And I think resiliency is a lot of times knowing in that it will get better, and holding on to that hope and trusting the universe will provide.
Right. Trust. I mean, it's not always easy to go to that place, right? We're so conditioned to operating in this physical world, to operating from our conscious mind. We're so conditioned to relying on what we can see and feel and touch and taste and hear, but we forget that there's this whole other realm out there, right? There's this power, this strength, the universe, God, our spirit guides, angels, etc. There's this whole team out there that's available to us. And sometimes I think we forget to ask, right? We forget to call on the power of the universe to help us through these situations. But it really is, I mean, it really does call us to trust the process and let go of trying to make sense of it right now. It's like you said, I mean, one of the questions I asked, and you said, what, I probably would have answered that question differently while I was going through it, right? But now that I'm on the other side of it, now that I'm further down the path, I have a different perspective, right? So just allowing the events of life to happen to you, to flow through you, and trusting that at some point you will come to a place of acceptance, into a place of closure, into a place of understanding. But the beauty really happens when we just let go and surrender and accept that, what, this is my reality right now, and flow with the direction that life is taking us, and not resist, right? Frame and pivot and adapt. That's how we get through whatever it is that we're dealing with in life, whether it's a personal crisis, whether it's a worldwide pandemic. It really is all about being nimble and adapting and reframing and learning to flow with the direction life is taking us. Your story is absolutely so beautiful. I feel like I can sit here and talk to you for hours about this. Before we wrap up, I want to talk about one other area that was highlighted during our interview, and I think this is really important. This is a direction I'm going to start to go professionally and talk more publicly and openly about this, because I think it really I think the world is in need of, this topic is in need of some attention, and that is this whole idea of self-love, accepting who we are, loving our bodies, celebrating our bodies for, what they are and their innate beauty. Because I'm witnessing a lot of, and again, I say this with no judgment. Everybody's on their own journey and they're making the choices that feel right for them at the time. I get that. But I see a lot of choices being made in the way of plastic surgery, discretionary alterations, things like that, that, it says to me, what, I don't believe I'm beautiful enough the way that I am. And my message to everyone is, you are. I believe that we are all, created in the likeness and image of God. I think that we are all perfect the way that we are. And I think it's so important to accept our bodies the way that they are, and, complete with any physical limitations, understanding that that is part of our human experience. That's part of what makes us unique. that can be reframed, and that can be viewed as a gift, right? We can be celebrated. We can meet that situation with gratitude. So there's just so much here, so much substance and depth and richness. And I would just love to hear your reflections on the importance of loving and accepting our bodies the way that they are.
I completely agree with everything you said. I'm going to backtrack just a little bit. You said that trusting our angels, right? And I do want to say that resiliency doesn't happen alone. I had a team of medical professionals, physical therapists that served as my earthly angels, and they helped me along. And I think when you're going through moments of chaos, oftentimes we want to hide under the blanket and close the shutters and not let love in. And that's when we have to uh, let love in the most. And so, with that said, I think resiliency is also a part of allowing yourself to be loved during those hard moments and surrounding yourself with people that bring out the best in you and bring positivity to the situation. Now, as far as self love is concerned, I couldn't agree with you more. I believe that as individuals, we are divine beings at a local address, and that we oftentimes grow up to be critical of ourselves. I know I did. I grew up thinking that I wasn't a person that was worthy of anything. And I think our bodies are the first things that we learn to judge. Uh, and our bodies are the first things on our journey that oftentimes we have to learn to accept. And so, with that said, uh, self love is such a huge part of not only transformation, but it's really the pinnacle of where uh, resiliency meets. It really is the crown jewel of your experience. Your experience, at least, well, my experience should be that I am self-love, and not only am I a loving being, but that I know that I am loved and that I give love freely. And self-love uh, starts your helps start your journey, and it helps with your entire journey and on your path. So, with that said, uh, self love has been a huge part of my journey, and accepting my body the way that it is, limitations and all. And it's definitely something that I've spent years working on from within.
I love that. I love everything that you said. And that is just so, again, so important to highlight that, the relationship that we have with ourselves is the basis for our entire human experience, right? So everything stems from how we feel about ourselves. So
Absolutely. That's
important.
exactly what I was trying to get at. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just echoing what you said because it is just so important. I wanted to highlight it, that it really does start with from within. Right? Like you said earlier, it comes from, we harness that power from within, and everything in our reality is a reflection of how we feel about ourselves. So it really is an inside job. It's an inside job of going deep within and learning to love ourselves and accept ourselves. And then it is when we come from that place that everything else in our physical reality comes into alignment and starts to flow. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
everything that
I
you shared with us, is there anything before we wrap up, anything else you wanted to share with our viewers and listeners, maybe any words of inspiration or hope for people who are in really challenging situations right now?
uh yeah, I guess we could. So if you're in a challenging situation and you find yourself in a place of discomfort, uh, n- let love be your guide. Let love not only propel you, whether that be self-love or love that you give to others, but let it help you. Altruism, when we help others, when we extend love to others, we innately help ourselves. And I think that let love be your guide, and allow things to happen and be, and allow yourself grace and patience. I think with me and going through all the challenges that I've gone through, I at times was critical of myself and hard on myself. And if I had to do it again, I would say, if I'm truly trusting of the universe, and I'm willing to bet on myself, then there's no reason to beat myself up. I just have to learn that all is right and all will be. And uh, and and so allow yourself grace, allow yourself moments of moments of reflection. And it's okay to have a pity party. It's okay to fall down. It's okay to fail. The point is not to get stuck there.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So
uh
beautifully
yeah.
said.
But one last thing, I do want to say a huge thank you for allowing me this venue to express my experience, and for sharing my passion of resiliency. It's This is my first podcast that I've done, and so yeah, it's something that. When I talked to you initially, it was something I was looking forward to. So I really appreciate you allowing me this opportunity.
You are welcome. Thank you. And it has been such a pleasure to have you. I'm so grateful that you were willing to come on the podcast and share your story because I know it's going to touch so many lives. It's super powerful. And I am super grateful that you were able to be here today. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you, you too. And I was going to say, lastly, if people would like to get in contact with you directly, what is the best way for them to do that?
They could use my website, faroukashaw.com. They could use my Instagram, Farooq Shah. I don't think there's too many Farooq Shahs around. But yeah, or I do have a book on Amazon. It's called A Moment of Belief. It is a book I wrote about my injury and my experience, as well as I have a children's book called Frankie Saves the Day, talking about disability and body image with children. And so, yeah, if they would like to get in contact with me, feel free to reach out through Instagram, Facebook. Yeah, I'm around.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And thank you again for being here today. And I would also like to thank our viewers and listeners. I believe that time is a choice, and I am grateful that you have carved time out of your day to be here with us to listen to Farooq's highly inspirational story. So thank you all very much. Again, check out my book, SOAR, SOAR, on Amazon. And I would love to have you be part of my Facebook group, liveauthentically.today/FB. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day.